Being lonely alone is better than being miserable together. Have you ever heard that before? These words may sound simple, but they carry deep meaning, especially for people who have lived long enough to understand life. Many older men reach a point where the house feels too quiet, meals feel empty, nights feel longer. Friends, relatives, and even children start saying the same thing again and again. You should remarry. It sounds like good advice. After all, no one likes to be alone. But what if this advice is incomplete? What if remarriage after 60 is not the solution people think it is? I have spent many years studying senior life, reading expert opinions, and listening to real stories from older men. Doctors, financial advisors, relationship psychologists, and even divorce lawyers all see the same patterns repeating. Sadly, many men only realize the truth when it is too late. Remarriage and love are not the same thing, especially after 60. Here is something most people never say openly. Love can exist without marriage, but marriage always comes with legal, financial, and emotional consequences. When you are young, you have time and energy to recover from mistakes. After 60, mistakes cost much more, and sometimes everything. Let me tell you about Robert. He was 72 and had been widowed for several years. He met a woman named at a community center. She was warm, caring, and made him laugh again. For the first time in years, he felt alive. 6 months later, they got married. At first, life felt good, but slowly problems appeared. Had old medical bills, credit card debt, and adult children who often needed money. Robert didn't think much about it at first, until he realized his retirement savings were no longer just his. Legally, everything was now shared. Financial planners call this silent wealth transfer. It happens quietly and legally. A man spends his whole life saving, planning, and building security. One marriage contract can connect all of that to another person's past, problems, and responsibilities. Many men never see it coming. By the time a man reaches his 60s or 70s, he usually has something valuable: a home, savings, social security benefits, maybe a pension. Remarriage can legally tie all of that to someone else. If she has debt, it can become yours. If she has health issues, the costs can come from your savings. Even benefits from a late wife can disappear after remarriage. This is not about being negative or against love. It is about reality. Financial experts say remarriage after 60 is one of the biggest financial risks a man can take, bigger than market crashes or medical emergencies. Why? Because this risk is a choice, and once it is made, it is very hard to undo. Many men say, "But I trust her." Trust is important, but trust does not control the law. Courts don't decide based on feelings. They decide based on contracts. A marriage license is not a symbol of love. It is a legal agreement that changes your money, your property, and your future. Before doing anything, experts suggest asking yourself one honest question. Am I prepared to risk what I worked my entire life to build? If that question makes you uncomfortable, that feeling matters. This is only the first reason experts warn older men to think carefully before remarrying. In the next part, we will talk about something just as important, but less discussed: emotional freedom, and why many men lose peace instead of gaining happiness after remarriage. After money, many men slowly realize they are losing something even more valuable: peace of mind. When people are young, marriage usually means building a future together. There are shared goals, children to raise, and long-term plans. But after 60, life changes. Most men at this age are no longer trying to build something new. They are trying to protect what they already have. With age comes a desire for simplicity: waking up without pressure, eating when you want, sitting quietly without explaining yourself. These small freedoms are not selfish. They are earned after decades of responsibility, stress, and sacrifice. Remarriage often changes this more than people expect. Helen's father at 68, several years after losing his wife of 40 years. At first, the family felt relieved. He seemed less lonely. He smiled more. Everyone believed he had found comfort again. But slowly, things began to shift. His new wife liked the house warm. He preferred it cool. She enjoyed constant background noise. He valued silence. She wanted shared social activities. He wanted quiet evenings at home. None of these issues seemed serious on their own, but when they happen every day, they begin to wear a person down. Over time, Helen noticed something troubling. Her father spoke less freely. He hesitated before making small decisions. He apologized more. His home no longer felt like a place of rest. It felt like a place where he had to be careful. This is something therapists and senior counselors see often. After 60, emotional tolerance becomes lower. The brain is less flexible when it comes to constant adjustment. What once felt like compromise now feels exhausting. What once felt like companionship can begin to feel like pressure. Stress at this age does not stay in the mind. It moves into the body. Doctors have linked late-life emotional stress to high blood pressure, heart problems, poor sleep, and weakened immunity. Many men who felt stable before remarriage begin experiencing anxiety afterward, even if they cannot explain why. Most men do not talk about this. They tell themselves they should be grateful. They chose this path, so they stay quiet, they endure, and slowly their health begins to change. There is also the weight of emotional responsibility. Remarrying later in life often means taking on another person's emotional history. Old wounds, long-held habits, unresolved fears, these do not disappear with age. In many cases, they become stronger. Instead of peace, some men find themselves managing emotions they are not prepared for. This is not because anyone is cruel or demanding. It is because emotional energy becomes limited with age. Living alone can feel empty at times, but feeling emotionally drained inside your own home can feel far worse. Many senior counselors quietly admit something uncomfortable. Some men feel lonelier inside unhappy marriages than they ever felt living alone. That truth surprises many people. Companionship itself is not the problem. The problem is believing marriage is the only way to achieve it. At this stage of life, peace is not a luxury. It is essential. And when peace is disturbed long enough, it does not stay contained. It begins to affect family relationships as well, especially with children. Family relationships often change quietly after a man remarries later in life. At first, everyone may try to be polite and supportive. Children tell themselves they want their father to be happy, smile, and adjust. On the surface, things look fine. But underneath, tension can begin to grow. Many adult children struggle with remarriage, even when they don't say it out loud. They worry about their father being taken advantage of. They worry about money, inheritance, and family traditions. They worry about losing their place in his life. These feelings are rarely discussed honestly. Instead, they turn into distance. William was 73 when he had 3 adult children and 5. He believed marriage would bring stability and companionship. He never imagined it would affect his family so deeply. At first, his new wife tried to be friendly, but she had her own ideas about family boundaries. She felt the children visited too often. She believed holidays should be shared differently. She thought financial matters should stay private between husband and wife. Slowly, invitations became uncomfortable. Family dinners felt tense. Conversations became shorter. His children stopped sharing personal concerns. Visits became less frequent. William felt caught in the middle, unsure how to protect his marriage without losing his children. This situation is more common than people admit. Family therapists explain that remarriage after 60 often creates 2 competing loyalties. A man feels responsible to his spouse, but also deeply connected to his children. When these relationships pull in different directions, stress becomes unavoidable. Money makes this tension worse. Adult children may worry about inheritance, even if they feel ashamed to admit it. They may fear family homes being sold or savings being redirected. These fears don't always come from greed. Often, they come from uncertainty and loss of security. Legal documents also become complicated. Wills, beneficiaries, and property ownership can change overnight after remarriage. Even when intentions are good, misunderstandings can lead to resentment. A man may believe he is protecting everyone, while his children feel excluded and pushed aside. Over time, communication breaks down. Some children begin visiting less to avoid conflict. Others become distant to protect their own emotions, may drift away without fully understanding why. The man often feels confused and hurt. He never wanted division. He simply wanted companionship. What makes this especially painful is that family relationships, once damaged, are very hard to repair later in life. Time feels more precious. Missed years feel heavier. Experts who work with seniors say many men underestimate this risk. They believe love and good intentions will solve everything. But family systems are fragile. Even small changes can create lasting effects. There is also a quiet emotional cost. A man who once felt proud of his family may begin feeling isolated from them. He may hesitate to speak freely around his spouse. He may avoid difficult conversations with his children. Slowly, he becomes careful with everyone. This constant emotional balancing act drains energy. Instead of enjoying time with family, he feels pressure. Instead of peace, he feels guilt. And guilt, when it lasts too long, becomes stress. Some men later admit they would have chosen differently if they had understood these consequences. Not because they didn't care about love, but because they didn't want to lose family connection. Companionship should add to life, not quietly divide it. And while family tension is painful, there is another reality many men do not consider at all. What happens when health begins to change, and companionship slowly turns into responsibility? As time passes, health begins to play a larger role in every relationship after 60. Even people who feel strong today know, deep down, that the body does not stay the same forever. Energy changes, mobility changes, medical needs slowly increase. This is where many men are caught unprepared. When companionship turns into marriage later in life, it also brings an unspoken expectation: care. Not emotional care alone, but physical and medical care. What begins as support can quietly turn into responsibility. Charles was 69 when he was active, independent, and proud of his health. His wife was kind and intelligent, but she had ongoing medical issues that seemed manageable at first. Doctor visits were occasional. Medications were simple. Within a few years, everything changed. Her health declined faster than expected. Appointments became frequent. Medications increased. Daily routines revolved around her needs. Charles found himself scheduling his life around doctors, treatments, and emergencies. He loved his wife, but he was exhausted. Caregiving is not just physically demanding. It is emotionally draining. It requires patience, constant attention, and the ability to put another person's needs before your own every single day. At a younger age, couples often share this burden more evenly. After 60, caregiving usually falls on the healthier partner and often on the man. Doctors and senior care specialists warn that late-life caregivers face higher risks of depression, sleep problems, heart disease, and weakened immunity. Many caregivers ignore their own health until something serious happens. Financial strain often follows. Medical care is expensive. Even with insurance, costs add up quickly. Prescriptions, home modifications, special equipment, and possible in-home care can drain savings faster than expected. What many men don't realize is that marriage can make them legally responsible for these costs. Decisions they once made independently now require joint consideration. Savings meant for retirement travel or personal comfort may disappear into medical bills. The emotional weight is just as heavy. Men who once enjoyed quiet mornings and simple routines find themselves constantly alert. Nights become interrupted. Anxiety increases. Rest becomes rare. And yet many men feel they have no right to complain. They tell themselves this is what commitment means. They feel guilty for wanting rest. They feel ashamed for missing their old independence. This internal conflict creates stress that doesn't show on the outside, but slowly damages health on the inside. Some men eventually admit something difficult. They were prepared for companionship, but not for full-time caregiving. This does not make them heartless, it makes them human. Late-life caregiving can also change the emotional balance of a relationship. The connection shifts from partnership to dependency. Romance fades. Conversations revolve around symptoms and schedules. Loneliness can return, even when someone is sitting right beside you. Experts often say that caregiving is one of the most underestimated risks of remarriage after 60. Not because illness is rare, but because people underestimate how quickly roles can change. Life expectancy has increased, but so have years lived with chronic illness. That means more years of care, not just companionship. Many men assume their children will help if health declines, but adult children have their own families, jobs, and limitations. Care often falls back on the spouse. By the time this reality becomes clear, choices feel limited. The house feels smaller, freedom feels distant, time feels heavier. And while caregiving is one challenge, there is another change that often arrives quietly alongside it: the gradual loss of personal identity and independence that many men never expected to face. As responsibilities grow, many men begin to notice something else fading quietly in the background: their sense of self. For most of their lives, men define themselves through roles: provider, husband, father, worker, problem solver. These roles give structure and meaning. After retirement and remarriage, those roles begin to change and sometimes disappear. At first, the change is subtle. A man stops choosing how to spend his mornings. His schedule slowly becomes tied to another person's needs. Doctor visits, errands, household routines, all planned around someone else. His hobbies are postponed. His quiet time shrinks. His personal space slowly disappears. He doesn't complain. He tells himself this is normal. This is what partnership looks like. But inside, something feels off. Many men describe it as feeling smaller, less visible, less certain of who they are outside the relationship. Decisions that were once simple now require discussion. Preferences are negotiated. Independence becomes limited. This is especially difficult later in life, when mental flexibility is lower and personal routines matter more. Psychologists explain that after 60, identity becomes closely tied to autonomy. Being able to choose how to live each day plays a major role in emotional health. When that autonomy is reduced, frustration and sadness often follow. Some men begin withdrawing without realizing it. They speak less, they avoid conflict, they keep thoughts to themselves. Over time, this emotional withdrawal can turn into depression. What makes this painful is that it often goes unnoticed. Friends may see a married man and assume he is happier. Family members may think companionship solved loneliness. Few people ask how he truly feels inside his own life. Another issue is regret. Men sometimes look back and realize they rushed into remarriage because they feared being alone. They didn't give themselves time to adjust to widowhood or divorce. They didn't explore who they were without a partner. Later in life, time feels more valuable. Regret feels heavier. Some men quietly admit they miss the freedom they once had. Not freedom to be reckless, but freedom to be themselves. To live without constant responsibility. To enjoy silence without explanation. This regret does not mean they hate their spouse. It means they miss parts of themselves that no longer have space to exist. Experts who work with older adults often say this stage of life is meant for reflection, peace, and self-understanding. It is a time to reconnect with interests that were put aside for decades, to enjoy life at a slower, more personal pace. When remarriage removes that space instead of protecting it, emotional conflict begins. There is also the reality of dependency. As independence fades, confidence often fades with it. A man may begin doubting his own judgment. He may feel less capable. Over time, this can affect mental sharpness and motivation. Independence is not just about physical ability, it is about choice. When choices disappear, so does a sense of control. Many men do not realize how deeply this affects them until they imagine life continuing this way for years. The thought can feel heavy and limiting. Yet most men stay silent. They believe speaking up would hurt feelings. They believe it is too late to change anything. So they adapt, even when adapting costs them peace. But understanding this pattern matters. Because when a man understands what he risks losing, not just money or health, but identity, he can make more thoughtful decisions. And that leads to the most important realization of all. Companionship does not have to mean surrendering your life. There are other ways to feel connected without losing yourself. And that truth changes everything. Many men reach this realization quietly. There is no sudden moment, no argument, no dramatic event. Just a slow understanding that companionship and marriage are not the same thing, especially later in life. After 60, the cost of decisions becomes heavier. Time feels shorter. Energy feels more limited. What once seemed like small compromises now shape entire years. That is why many experts encourage older men to pause, not rush. Loneliness is real. It can feel sharp at night. It can make mornings feel empty. It can push a man toward choices he would never have considered before. But loneliness is a feeling. Marriage is a legal and emotional structure. Confusing the two can be costly. What many men truly want is connection, conversation, shared meals, someone to talk to, someone who understands their history and listens without judgment. None of these things require a legal contract. Senior counselors often point out that companionship can take many forms: close friendships, long-term partners who live separately, shared activities without shared finances. These arrangements protect independence while still offering emotional warmth. Some men discover that living apart but staying connected brings more peace than living together under pressure. Each person keeps their own space, routines, and financial control. Time together becomes intentional, not forced. This approach also reduces family conflict. Children feel less threatened, boundaries remain clearer, financial plans stay intact, relationships remain easier to manage. There is also less fear. When marriage is removed from the equation, anxiety often decreases. Men feel freer to enjoy the present without worrying about legal consequences or long-term obligations they may not be able to meet. Health professionals support this thinking. Lower stress leads to better sleep. Better sleep supports the heart, memory, and immune system. Emotional calm becomes a form of self-care. The goal after 60 is not to prove anything. It is not to meet expectations. It is not to follow advice that worked for younger lives. The goal is peace. Many men say that once they stop feeling pressured to remarry, clarity returns. They begin enjoying their own company again. They reconnect with hobbies. They rebuild routines that bring comfort and stability. They also make better relationship choices, ones based on calm, not fear. It is important to say this clearly. Choosing not to remarry is not a failure. It is not weakness. It is not giving up on love. It is choosing wisely. Late life offers something rare: the chance to live deliberately, to protect health, to preserve family bonds, to enjoy the fruits of decades of work without unnecessary risk. Men who understand this often feel relief. The pressure lifts, the future feels less threatening, decisions feel lighter. The most peaceful relationships are not built on fear of being alone. They are built on choice. When a man chooses companionship without surrendering his independence, he keeps control over his time, his money, his health, and his identity. That control is priceless. Loneliness can be managed. Regret is harder to undo. Understanding the difference can shape the rest of a man's life in quiet but powerful ways. In the end, the question is not whether a man should ever love again. The real question is whether love should cost him everything he worked so hard to protect. For many men after 60, the answer becomes clear when they give themselves permission to choose peace. There's so much more on my channel. Don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next life story with love and respect.